Welcome to this Fulbright application workshop. Today we're going to talk through some of the major issues, major parts of the Fulbright application so that you can get a better sense of what they're looking for and how you can best sort of meet and know the expectations that Fulbright has for you. The foundations, plural, of Fulbright are, number one, to sort of help you and allow you to move forward in your intellectual or your artistic efforts or develop professional skills. It's sort of there to allow you to take a nice big jump forward. And this idea of Fulbright allowing you to move productively towards some goal is an idea that I'm going to bring up again several times probably, because I think that if you understand what you're asking for money to do in that regard, it's really helpful. But Fulbright is interested in supporting your intellectual, artistic, or professional development. They're also looking for real live, honest to God people who have flesh and blood on their bones and who will act as citizen ambassadors. This part needs, I would say, maybe a little more support than you might think, because for many academically gifted students, such as yourself, to look at something like a grant proposal as it's all about how smart I am. I've got to show them how smart I am. I got to show them I work harder than anybody else. I got to show them that I'm the most productive person they've ever met, is not alone really what Fulbright is looking for. Clearly, you have to be smart. Clearly, you have to be hardworking, but they're also looking for interesting human beings to send because they look at you as a citizen ambassador. And I'll point out a couple of places where I believe they make this abundantly clear, and I'm going to try to sort of show you how to think about this. The booklet, if you're looking at that, the front part is called the Fulbright Companion. The back part is kind of well, not entirely random, but a bunch of material that doesn't really hang together in any kind of narrative way. It's just pages that I think are helpful for you to understand some of the stuff we're going to talk about here. The Fulbright that you are applying to is this one, the Fulbright U.S. Student Program, sort of toward the top of your screen in blue with white letters, green with white letters, I apologize. And the reason why I emphasize this is that there are 4 different Fulbright programs, and we have people who apply for the wrong one every year. So don't do that. This is the one, okay? And I have a lot of links in all of my materials that will take you to the right application, for example, okay? It's also good if you look at the bottom of the screen, there's the URL there. You can find it easily, I know, but I just threw it up there. The URL will take you to this site, and I can't say enough about how helpful the Fulbright site has become in terms of guides and in terms of podcasts and webinars and videos from past recipients, things like that. They really have upped their game over the last 10 years. The FFA, Fulbright Faculty Advisor, this is someone that we will assign to you. The Fulbright Faculty Advisor plays a really important role in that they are the sort of an analog for a Fulbright selector. So let's talk about the Fulbright selectors a little bit. When you apply to Fulbright, you know what country you're applying to. You can only apply to one country. And you know that the people who will read your materials in both rounds, the domestic round on the US side and the international round, you'll know that all those people will be either academic experts in your country or host country nationals with, you know, high education, PhDs and whatnot. That's all you know. So you don't know what their discipline is, you don't know what their background is, you don't know what their own research is about. For that reason, when you write a Fulbright, you need to write to a intellectual person of goodwill, a generalist. And the Fulbright Faculty Advisor that we assign you plays that role. So you might have an application or you might have an idea that when you talk to people in your field, they all just like their eyes bug out and they break out into sweat and it's like, oh my God, this is great. If you can't put that on a piece of paper so that the Fulbright Faculty Advisor also sees how great it is, you still have a problem. And so that's the role that they play, the sort of outsider who's not in your field, but who can assess from an expert position whether you're making a good, strong, clear, cogent argument or not. Okay, so Fulbright faculty advisor, there's a link on our page we'll talk about later where you can register. Once you register, then I know you're a serious applicant and I will assign you a faculty advisor. On the Fulbright site, if you have not already gone and looked at the program site or the country profile for your country or the countries you're suggesting, please go ahead and do that quickly. I expect you to sort of have that memorized so that you know all of the ins and outs of what they want and don't want and allow and don't allow. But it's actually the middle of this page that's most important. And this points to one of the big truths in the world of applying for fellowships, Fulbright included, of course. And that is, you never, ever, ever apply as the person you are today. You never, ever, ever apply as the person you will be on the application deadline. You always apply as the person you will be when you begin the award. So for you guys, that is September of 2021. And so I will ask you on Fulbright's behalf, what are you going to do between now and September of 2021 to make yourself a better applicant, a better scholar, a better artist? And there's one very clear, very kind of easy arena within which you can clearly distinguish yourself, and that is language. So language is one of those big things where you can't hide it if you don't have it. And if you don't have it, it's very unimpressive to the people who are dedicated to that country, the scholars and the host country nationals. And so what are you planning to do between today and September of 2021 in order to increase your language abilities? If you can only pick one thing to do, I would say that's the big one, because your dedication to the language indicates a dedication to the country, to its culture, to its people, and that's exactly the kind of person that they would like to support. So take relevant classes if you're still in coursework. If you're not in coursework, what can you do in an extracurricular way in order to make yourself a stronger applicant? The registration link is up on our site now. If you go to our site, there's a big picture at the top, and then directly underneath that, it kind of looks like a caption, but it's if you read it, you'll see that it's the link to the registration. Good. Now you can go to the booklet. There's a general comments page. It's probably about after the halfway point. And what this is a list of kind of the top 12, I think there's 12 in there this year, issues that the interviewers saw. All right. What I mean by that is that you'll be interviewed in September, and the interviewers who do this on behalf of the office, I always ask them, I query them, what is it you saw in the interviews that you think ought to be, fixed, problems? And I have 5 pages of their replies. But some things come back again and again and again. So you're seeing in the document the 12 most common issues. And here are 2 that I just want to talk about quite quickly. One is that in my experience, people are much better able to articulate their project verbally than they are in written language. And I'm not a neuro-linguist. I can't explain why that is, but it really is true. And so I urge everybody all the time to read your proposal out loud to yourself. You will hear infelicities of language. You will hear logical problems. You will hear where it just kind of doesn't work, where you're not explaining things very well. And that's a difficult thing to go through. I've done it myself. It kind of never is any fun, but it's really one of the best ways for you to alone take your materials up a notch. So that's the one thing. The second thing is that another very common problem, particularly with early drafts, is to read a proposal and think, this is great. There's no way you can get that done. Ambition is lovely, but ambition can very quickly come back and bite you on the butt, because if the selectors don't feel that you are able to accomplish or fulfill the promises you're making, they'll find somebody who does. I said it earlier, timeline. Timelines of activities. I'm going to do this. It's going to take this long. I'm going to interview 58 people. How long does it take to interview 58 people? 58 minutes, 58 hours, 58 days, 58 weeks, right? How long? And that's going to change depending on where you are. Much of my research is, well, all of my research has been in sub-Saharan Africa. And, people promising to meet you at a certain time and, life happens and they can't do it. That's really, really common. In other such situations, you're probably going to have 90+% of all your interviews will take place just as scheduled. Your job is to know that. So think in terms of a timeline. How long is it going to actually take you to do this? And then you will see, and do not mourn this, but you'll see that your project will have to kind of shrink down. And that's not a loss, it's actually a gain, because a project that can be done is always desirable versus a project that can't be done. And that's what you want to demonstrate, that you know how to get this stuff done. Here's all of the elements for the application form. I'm sure you've seen this before. We're going to go through the application. You can open up the blank application if you'd like to now. One of the big issues that I get starting in September is anxiety about somehow your application is going to get submitted irretrievably and you can never get it back. Well, you don't and I don't have a button where I could hit it and submit your application. All of that control is with Fulbright. So please don't take any time at all to fret about whether you are going to lose your application. It has never happened in the entire time that I've worked with this, which is about 15 years now. Off we go. So with one exception, the next, 10 pages or so that we're going to look at are the version of your application that you will see after you after you complete it and after you hit the preview button. So I completed a Fulbright application this year and I hit the preview button and this is what we've got. So I've highlighted a couple of things here that I want to talk about. We're going to go through my application and then there's one page where it is the version of the application that the selectors will see. Page 1, make sure you apply to through Northwestern University, not Northeastern University, not Northwestern College, both of which are options, and we've seen them in the past, but just attend to that one, please. If you are a dual citizen, please check your country profile quite carefully to make sure that it is okay for you to apply. This is 99% of the time only if you are a dual citizen with the country where you want to go. If you're a dual citizen, just period, as long as you're a US citizen, it's not problematic. More just general information, nothing really exciting here. On we go. Here's a good one. Now you can look at both documents simultaneously. There's a page in the booklet called The Three Boxes, and here is the 3 boxes. The reason why I call them the 3 boxes is that on one page, the program information page, you will have 3 kind of short answer, I think it's like 300 characters, boxes that you have to fill in. And I want to talk about these because they're quite important. The way they're placed really points to why they're so important. Abstract, number 1. If you don't know the difference between an abstract and an introductory paragraph, figure it out. They do not do the same work. Their form is not the same. In fact, if I see more than about 5 words in a row from your introductory paragraph in the abstract or vice versa, I get hivey because I think, well, you don't even care enough to write new material, right? So make sure you understand what an abstract is and what it does, and make sure that you are using fresh material in fresh configurations in your introductory paragraph and in the abstract. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, host country engagement. I think of this as, what are you going to do in your free time? That's the way that it makes sense to me. I have began the presentation by talking about how Fulbright is interested in the whole person. This is a place where you really talk about that, where you say, when I'm not in the workplace, which I think is the phrasing that they have, when I am kind of being myself and in that self being a citizen ambassador, this is who I am. This is what I do. The biggest mistake I think that you can make when you are completing the host country engagement piece is to say, in essence, and my host country engagement is exactly the same as my project because I'm so hardworking and I'm so serious and all I do is work, 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 work. This is not interesting. This is not fun. This is not human in most cases. So take a little bit of a leap of faith. And if you believe me that they're looking for who you are when you're not on the job, tell them. What do you do in your free time? The people who have this easiest all throughout the world are soccer players, right? Soccer players. They can go anywhere and they can say, I'm going to join a team. Entirely believable, and it shows them in a very different light than whatever their project is. Okay? And then plans upon return to the US. The way I urge you to think about this is to understand that the Fulbright and all other fellowships, it's really all about investment, as in you would like Fulbright to invest in you and your ideas and your future. Otherwise, why are you here? And good news, Fulbright wants to invest in young Americans' ideas, futures, and goals. So it's a love fest. You want them to invest in you. They want to invest in you. All you got to do is say, if you invest in me, Fulbright, this is what you get. And I'd like you to think about that in two time frames. The first one is the easy one of, if you invest in me and send me to Ireland to study Irish cinema, here's how I'm going to do it. Day one, day two, first week, I'm going to talk to these people. This is how I'm going to gather data. This is how I'm going to analyze data. And this is why it's important. So the payout of investing in you in the short term is the product of your Fulbright research. Of course, everyone's thinking about that. Plans upon return to the US, however, I would urge you to take that time frame out times 10, as in, if we fund you now, what are you going to be doing in 10 years that pays back the investment that we're making in you now? So clearly you cannot know what you're going to be doing in 10 years. And I find that totally unproblematic. If someone wants to, unmute yourselves and say, Stephen, I know exactly what I will be doing in 10 years, and I guarantee I will be doing this, I'll roll my eyes nicely and I'll smile sweetly and I'll go, oh, geez. Okay. You don't know, you can't know. There's no possible way to know. Makes your job a lot easier. Don't pretend you know. But if you don't have some dreams, if you don't have some desires, you don't have some wishes, hopes, aspirations, then what's Fulbright funding if not that? So tell us how you see who you are now, add the Fulbright to that, all of a sudden, things get really good. And then you're going to continue. You're going to go out there. You're going to go forward. And hopefully, ideally, with luck, with hard work and persistence, in 10 years, you will have accomplished what? Okay? This is scary, yes, but entirely doable. So that's what I urge you to put in the plans upon return to the US. Please do not do what many applicants do until I yell at them and say, when I return to the United States, I would like to earn a doctoral degree, period. I'm done now. Oh my goodness. A doctoral degree, while difficult, is not an accomplishment. Or I'd like to get a job. Great. Jobs are great. Not an accomplishment. What do you want to do with a doctoral degree? What do you want to leave behind that will make the world a different and hopefully better place? And if you don't have a sense of what that might look like, work on it, develop it. Okay? You've got something beating in your heart. You just have to have the courage to let it out. Bottom of this screen. Well, let me stop there. Are there any questions? I've been like really jawing here, I know. Okay, you can type them in if you want to as well, or just unmute yourself and interrupt. I think everybody would appreciate it if you'd keep me stopped from talking. Funding from other sources. Frankly, it doesn't really matter what you put in there, except in one instance. That is, if you have a project that really requires external funding in order to be successful, you have to let us know where that's going to come from. Fulbright funds your transportation and they fund your maintenance. They do not give you 1 penny for research costs. If they're modest, you know, a couple $100 for this or that, you can just sort of, you work it out. But if your project needs significant outside funding or significant funding to be successful on top of transportation, on top of maintenance, you got to show us where that's coming from. Okay, good. This is the page that comes from the version that the selectors look at. This is page 2 of your application. So they pick up your application, they look at page 1 and they say, oh, look, this student from Northwestern is applying. How fabulous. I'm so excited by that. And you know what they see immediately after they find your name, rank, and serial number? Your abstract. Abstract's on page 1. Then they open it up. This is page 2. So their impression of you, who you are in their mind, first impressions last, comes from those 3 boxes as much as anything else. They will read the rest of the application. But if they get off on the wrong foot with the 3 boxes, hard to recover from that. So please attend to the 3 boxes. They are quite serious. Are we good? So now we're back to your version. Affiliation letter we'll talk about later. Professional information, nothing really much interesting. All the stuff on your CV gets put into this extracurricular activities area in sort of 3 large categories. You'll see that when you get in there. Experience abroad, you can ignore the top 2 highlights. It's the bottom one that really matters. They have this open box that you can write in additional comments regarding experience abroad. I don't urge you to be a completist. If you are fortunate and have had a lot of experiences overseas and you've been to 15 different countries, don't use that space to fill up all the other places you've been. Use it to tell us how your travel has meant something to you. They don't define what you can put in this box, and so I think you should use it as a way to say, my travels have awoken in me interests or moralities or aptitudes, including X. So they can see that you're someone who takes experiences overseas and uses them in a very thoughtful way in the construction of who you are as a person. Language, as I mentioned earlier, is quite important in Fulbright. You will have 2 language evaluations. One is the official evaluation done by a language teacher. We'll get to that in a sec. The second one is this self-evaluation. It is, in fact, optional, but I think you'd be foolish not to do this. You know, why wouldn't you take every advantage to highlight what you have done? But this highlighted language learning planned study piece, what we call in our office the language acquisition plan, that's a place where I would urge you strongly to take some time, develop and implement as robust a plan as possible to learn as much of your host country's language as is humanly possible. Because of the construction of the official language evaluation, which is, you'll see in a second, it's fairly schematic. Because of that, they can look at your language abilities and kind of quickly make an assessment about whether you're ready to go or not. If you discuss with great vigor and deep planning and hopefully already begun activities, what you're going to do between the time when your application is submitted in October of this year and next year in September, if you tell them how you're going to use that time wisely, I think it helps a huge amount. Here's a place exactly where you can do that. They're asking you, tell us what you're going to do by way of learning language. It makes me nuts when people leave this blank, and they do. So don't. Academic information, professional experience, nothing really to talk about there. That's the language evaluation form. Filled out, well, we'll get to that in a sec. 5-point Likert scale, 4 areas of comprehension, easy peasy, okay? It's very simple. The application form is fairly extensive as these things go. It's not the longest or most tedious application I've seen, but it's not unlong and not untedious. Please make sure you're careful when you complete the application. One of the things that really kind of matters, neatness counts. I know I sound like a third grade teacher, but it's true that the folks who are reading these, if they get the sense that you didn't put much time or effort into it, so no abbreviations. Use appropriate cases, use NA or 0 as opposed to leaving something blank. I need your complete application by September 8th at 12 o'clock noon. That sets you up for an interview, which I believe between the 21st and 25th of September, whatever that week is. I might have the date slightly wrong. We'll have interviews. They will almost certainly be by Zoom, but that's TBD. Yeah, and so the more complete your application is, the better my interviewers can do knowing what your project is about and basically helping you to see ways to improve the thing. Okay. Personal statement. I think there's two kinds of information you should include in the personal statement. We call them your intellectual autobiography, and then what are you going to do in your free time. The intellectual autobiography plays an important role because it talks about your motivations. It lets us know why you care about what you're going to do. So I'm going to pick on one of you and say, Irish cinema, why do you care about that? You might have an interesting project, but if I don't have a sense that your heart is in it, if it's like purely an intellectual exercise, I have a harder time seeing you as building yourself into a contributor to this field and a contributor to debates about this field, right? So why you care about this is, I think, quite important. And that journey to who you are now probably began, I don't know, 10 years ago, 8 years ago. So think back in terms of your formative experiences, people you met. That's the one that I like to see a lot. Who's been influential in your life? What did their influence mean to you? What classes did you take that made you blow your mind? For the selectors to see that you have, in one way or another, and sometimes very tangential ways, but in one way or another, you've been kind of working towards this for a significant amount of time. That's really what I believe is good. So my favorite, the one that I read one time, was like, okay, I want to hear more about that. It's like, I'm a mathematician now because of my third grade art teacher. Okay, all right, let's hear that story. And it was a good one too, by the way. But then the free time, you get this box, 300 characters or 350 characters to talk about your free time. I don't think that's enough. I really feel that that's an important part of how you are going to engage with the host community. And I would urge you to take half, a third of your personal statement and unpack more why you love to, I don't know, throw horseshoes, right? Maybe you're a competitive horseshoe thrower from South Dakota. You're a state champ and you want to throw horseshoes or do whatever they do in that country. Learning more about you through your engagement and passion for horseshoes, right? You're a person, not a project. They want to fund people, not projects. They fund researchers, not research. I could go on. I'll spare you. But let us know who you are as a person. Now, letter of affiliation, which we call the letter of affliction, because these letters can be fairly difficult to get. If you have already identified or have a good sense of who your affiliate might be, good, pat yourself on the back. If not, start today. So how do you find an affiliate? You develop a workable scenario about your project in your mind. Then you start talking to people at Northwestern or people in other parts of your life who are experts in the area where you want to do this. And you say, hey, I'm interested in going to New Zealand. I want to study linguistics in New Zealand. Do you know anybody? And if you talk to Northwestern faculty, there's a really good chance that you're going to at least get a name of somebody, and that person may not be the person, but they know the country. And so they can help you to identify. So using your network, couldn't emphasize that enough. If your network lets you down, you need to cold call people or cold email them. I guess it's cold calling sounds better. I know nobody calls anymore, but I'm going to stick with cold calling. You need to email somebody. And you do that by identifying people whose work you think is important and interesting and relevant to your own. Read some of their work and then call them up or email them and say, hey, I just read your most recent article. I thought it was cool. This is how I think your work and my work really talk to one another. Blah, 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 blah. Can we talk? And one thing that is more or less universal with academics is if someone shows an interest in their work, they like it. They like it a lot, most frequently. So the letter of affiliation, the piece in the middle of the screen there, the affiliate has to know you. They have to think your project is good and doable and is valuable in some way. And they make a promise that they're going to help you in some tangible, concrete way to succeed in your project. And it really comes down to this. You get off that airplane, Fulbright wants to know that somebody there has got your back. That's where the letter of affiliation fits in. I'm sure you figured that out, but I want to say it out loud. So everybody that I've worked with in 15 years who has diligently gone after getting an affiliate has succeeded. It is an eminently doable thing, but it has to be done. So letters of recommendation, you got to have 3 of them. They have to be technical letters, not character letters. They have to be from people who are demonstrably excellent in your field, where they can assess the quality of the project, its likelihood of success, and you as an applicant, you as the person who's going to do this. So they have to know you pretty well, and they have to be experts in your field. You do not have to have only Northwestern professors. There's nothing that says that, but they all have to be able to convincingly assess you and your capabilities, which means they have to know you pretty well, and they have to be able to assess the quality of the project and its chance for success. Okay? If that turns out to be someone who's not a Northwestern professor, perfectly fine. For undergrads, it's fairly rare that that happens. For grad students, it's more rare.
Hey, Steve, can I ask a quick question on
Sure,
this?
please.
What about for example, if I'm applying to the binational internship program?
Yep.
Who are the types of folks that you recommend I reach out to if I don't really have like an expert in the field? So it could be perhaps my current manager or previous Northwestern professor. What do you think there?
Right. I would say that for the binational business internship award, current manager would make a lot of sense because they can assess, they can sort of say, you know, in these business situations, she's really excellent. She, you know, excels in these areas. And as far as Northwestern professors, ones who can get as close as possible to the specific kinds of work that you anticipate doing. And I think for Anna, this is like her vision or her future is maybe a little hazier than everybody else because they will start to match you with companies, right? But you can still, within the kinds of careers, the kinds of activities that you would do in companies, you can still kind of aim at particular kinds of things. I think in your one of your replies, you talked about marketing. Okay, good. So you're not going to go into finance. Okay, you're not going to go into industrial planning. You're going to work in the marketing area. Great. Who can talk about you as a marketer with the most authority and with the most detail and nuance? Those are your people.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Certainly. All right, good. Transcripts. You need all of them from all of your post-secondary schools and things like that. If you did study abroad, try to get your study abroad transcripts. I know that that's hard and sometimes they don't even look like transcripts, but if you kind of show a dedication to being complete, it helps. It's nice. Okay, good. Language evaluation, if the language is taught at Northwestern, and a lot of them are, have the Northwestern professor do it. If it's not taught at Northwestern, then try to find a Northwestern professor who speaks that language and have that person do it. And that's covered pretty much everybody I've ever worked with one example of a exception of an African language. And that was fairly easy because we have a good, strong African studies department. Yeah, but getting this language evaluation is key. It lets them see where you are. Supplementary material record card only for people in creative fields who will have a portfolio. If you're not going in a field that requires a portfolio, you do not have an option to include a portfolio. So it's an online electronic application form. It's either on or it's off. So you'll know if you have to do it. Campus committee evaluation. This is a document that we write on your behalf. You'll see a copy of it. I think it's maybe the last page in the booklet. And this is where the institution writes a letter on behalf of the applicant. And I have been an observer on Fulbright selection committees, the domestic ones. I've been an observer, I don't know, 20 times or so. And I'm always amazed how frequently the committee says, well, let's find out what the host institution says. Let's find out what the Fulbright committee says. Let's read the campus committee evaluation. They do this much more than I would, because I wouldn't trust some, flack at some institution who's, working with these students. But the committees routinely go to these. And if we are able to write a good, nuanced, detailed, exciting, vibrant, personal campus committee evaluation, it can help you. It could be a tiebreaker. Your FFA is the person who drafts this. If you do not ever contact your FFA, then they won't be able to do a good job, and I'll have to gin something up. And yeah, so please make sure that you contact your FFA, work with that person so that they can do a good job at generating the draft of your campus committee evaluation, your CCE. My colleague Amy and I, if you're sort of here wanting to hear about the study research, but are interested also in the ETA, the English Teaching Assistantship, my colleague Amy Kehoe manages that. You may have talked to her first and me second, or maybe me first and her second, but feel free to talk to Amy about that option as well. It might be better for you. I don't know. She would be able to help you with that. And let's just go to the end here. So you got to register. That link is on our page underneath the big picture at the top. And we need to get that registration before we can take care of the FFA. And you should always, of course, go to the Fulbright site and begin your application. That's it.
Thank you so much for going through all that. That was really helpful. A question regarding how any of the guidance you've provided or any of the next steps that you've provided differ for alumni. So does that change any of the things that I would have to go through?
Nope, nothing at all. You are welcome to go through the regular process that the undergrads go through. As an alum, you are entitled to apply at large, but if you do that, if you select at large rather than Northwestern, you won't appear on my queue, and therefore you're just not part of my world. So it's kind of opt in or opt out, and as an alum, you have the option to do that. I would invite you and urge you to go through our process, which I have some, I think, justifiable pride in. But no, we do not differentiate at all. And a concern that you might be in San Francisco or Buenos Aires right now, most students over the summer are not in Evanston. And so being away from Evanston is the norm, not the exception.
Okay, sounds good. And then we can reach out to you or Amy for just any feedback or thoughts regarding our application.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks.
Good.
Just a quick question on the last slide you said for campus, where would the PowerPoint be posted?
I will have a Canvas site that I'll mount. Basically, once you register, you get the FFA, and I didn't say it, but I'll also enroll you in this Canvas class for Fulbright, and it'll be posted there, as well as a lot of other materials that we have.
Great. And also another question, for the letter of recommendations,
Mhm.
I know you said all three had to be at least somewhat like related to the field, but for
Yep.
example, if I had done a previous research project that wasn't necessarily related to like hydrogels, but they could speak on my ability to complete a research project, would that be okay? Or
Yeah. So the narrowness or breadth of what you consider to be your field and your topic, you have leeway in there. I was really talking about like the letter written by, the mayor of your hometown who says she was a great citizen and she really was active in her high school, and that doesn't matter. So
gotcha.
I assume that the other projects, and what's your major?
Biomedical engineering.
Okay, so BME. So if those other projects were BME projects, perfectly fine,
Mhm.
because those people will be able to evaluate you as a young BMEer, if that's a word, and they will, they can kind of talk in authoritative terms about your ability to go into a lab, not break all the glasswork, and actually do something productive, right?
Mhm.
So if everything you've ever done is hydrogels and you've got 3 world-renowned hydrogel experts who are going to write letters, that's good. If not, however, then you just get as close as you can. And please, for everybody, nobody has ever had 3 perfect letters. Has never happened. So you're going to have probably 2 letters that are like, well, duh, and then you'll pull your hair out over that 3rd letter. Just get as close as you can to they know you really well, and they can assess the project and your capabilities to do it. Get as close to that as you can and just go.
Thank you.
Certainly.
I definitely have a lot of questions about my specific project, but I made an appointment to speak with you about those. I don't want to waste other people's time.
Very good. And everybody else is able to make an appointment. For the alums, contact Ivona, please. And you can get on my calendar that way. For the enrolled students, if you're an undergrad, Inspire. If you cannot see me through Inspire, again, contact Ivona. She does everything around here. And ask to be added to our group. If you are a grad student, then you'd have to contact Ivona again. All roads lead to Ivona.